Do you ever feel like you're almost running on a hamster wheel, just chasing happiness, but never quite catching it? Kind of like you're stuck on a loop of monotony, just waiting for some big event to finally break you out of your rut. It's easy to think that real change only comes from huge life-altering moments. But what if that's not always the case? What if the key to a really brilliant life is actually in the little things that we do every day? I want to tell you about one of my childhood friends. Let's call her Sarah. In her 30s, Sarah got hit with news that no one wants to hear: breast cancer. She has twin boys, and they were about 5 years old at the time. Well, both of Sarah's parents died in their late 40s, so it felt like her worst fears were coming true. Well, Sarah didn't just survive. She used this moment to completely change how she lived. After her treatments, which thankfully worked, she stopped watching TV. She started prioritizing trips with her family and friends. It's like she suddenly became hyper aware of how precious each moment is. Watching Sarah's transformation got me thinking, do we really need a life-threatening wake-up call to start fully living? Is there a way to find this kind of presence and new perspective on life without nearly dying to get there? The truth is, many of us are sleepwalking through life, caught up in routines and habits that don't really serve us. We're so busy doing what we think we should be doing that we forget to ask ourselves what actually makes us happy. But here's the thing. Happiness isn't some far-off destination. It's not a choice that happens to us. It's something that we create day by day, choice by choice. So today we're learning about the art of being brilliant. Our guest is Andy Cope, a happiness expert and best-selling author. He has spent years studying what makes people truly happy and successful. And he's not about quick fixes or empty promises. Instead, he focuses on practical, everyday strategies that can help us live a more vibrant and fulfilling life. Andy believes that we all have the potential to be brilliant. We just need to learn how to tap into it. So 3 key things we will learn are the habits that could be causing you to be your own worst enemy and how to fix them, why teeny tiny nudges can steer your life back on course in huge ways, and what's different about the mysterious 2% superachievers that just flow with life. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You guys, workplace stress is killing us. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal. So if you're feeling it, you are not alone. I used to think I could just push through everything, work harder, sleep less, pretend I had it all figured out, but that approach nearly broke me. I am all about following your joy. If that voice in your head is telling you to make a change, listen to it. Maybe you are ready to quit your job. Maybe you do need to flip your whole life upside down. But either way, you need support and tools to navigate it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without feeling guilty, how to manage anxiety before it spirals, how to make big moves from a place of strength instead of desperation. And BetterHelp has over 30,000 therapists and has helped 5 million people worldwide. And you can talk to someone from your couch. No waiting rooms, no awkward scheduling. Therapy gives you the clarity on whether that voice telling you to make a change is your intuition or just the Sunday scaries. But either way, you deserve support. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. Let me ask you something. How much time did you spend last week thinking about what to eat? Planning meals, making grocery lists, wandering around the store like a lost tourist. I used to waste entire Sunday afternoons on this, and it was exhausting. Then I found Hungry Root. Hungry Root fills your cart with personalized picks and plans your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. They have over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, and most are ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm actually headed to Michigan this week, and I had my Hungry Root order delivered there. So I already know that I have meals ready and plenty of snacks for the kids without scrambling to find a grocery store. It's just handled. And what I love most is their smart cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements just for me. So no more buying spinach that rots in my fridge. They screen out over 200 additives and only source high quality ingredients. The time I've gotten back has just been life changing. So take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE.
My 2%ers at the top, I've already said, statistically significantly happier, more energy, so many things going for them, create stronger relationships. All those extra mile behaviors come naturally in the 2% mode. But to get there, of course, you've got to carry a great attitude, and there's things that we could share that would help you to start to do to be the best version of you. But equally, what you're alluding to is to be the best version of you, you also have to stop doing things.
Turn up your frequency with MindLove. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
What has been your driving force behind using personal diaries as storytelling in the book?
Yeah, I think if my backstory is quite simple, really. I studied psychology many years ago, and every psychology student studies phobias, disorders, anxiety, depression, anything that can go wrong with you. I studied that, and I did that for a number of years. And then I discovered, Martin Seligman did it in America. It came over to the UK, positive psychology, basically in the early 2000s. I'd never considered that you could flip psychology on its head and look at well-being and look at happiness and look at positivity instead of illness. So I totally flipped it. I went to a place called Loughborough University, got a PhD. And so instead of looking at illness, I looked at wellness. And that was been the driving force for everything I've done since 2005. And it's changed my life. And now I write books and hopefully deliver keynotes and talks that helps instill. There's a lot of talk out there, Melissa, about living your best life and being your best self. And what positive psychology basically does is tell you how to do that.
So when you think of living your best life and being your best self, what do you think is different from the common conceptions?
Well, I think that it's very easy to get stuck in mediocrity. So it's so tempting, actually. And what happens is your brain has about 80,000 thoughts a day, but about 75,000 of those thoughts are the exact same thoughts you had yesterday. So your brain loves routine, repetitive behaviors, habits. So what your brain wants to do is just think the same thoughts and go through the same routines. And if you're not careful, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but you can get stuck. You can get stuck in what I call the curse of mediocrity, where you're accidentally counting down to your weekend. You're accidentally counting down to your next holiday. You learn that Mondays are bad and Fridays are good, and we fall into all these sort of bad habits. And really, what my best self is coming alive on a Monday, having the same enthusiasm that everybody else has on a Friday for a Monday. And if you can flip your thinking and come at life like that, then you start to stand out for the right reasons. So the people that I studied as part of my PhD, I essentially tried to gauge people and put them on a graph of happiness and well-being at work. And there's this very small percentage of the people at the top of that diagram. I nickname them the 2%ers. So that phrase, I'll just explain what that means, is essentially they're the people who are at the top of the well-being graph. There's a small percentage of the population who've got, statistically, they're happier. They've got about 40% more energy. They do stuff, they make things happen, they create stronger relationships, they tend to achieve bigger goals. Essentially, they feel amazing. So really, I want to be one of them. So that's what I set out to do. And that's me at my best, is in 2% mode at the top of my well-being diagram.
It's funny, in your book, you have a significant number, 4,000. And I just interviewed someone who has a company called 4,000 Mondays, and it's all about really taking control of just realizing when you only have 4,000, it just puts it in perspective.
Well, the 4,000 weeks things is actually a really big deal, because I deliver lots of keynotes and I still do lots of work in schools. So my big thing is we've got, give or take, in America, in the UK, in the Western world, the average lifespan is around 4,000 weeks. Now, if I announce that number to a bunch of primary school children, they will go ballistic. They will be like, "You are kidding, that is like forever. Oh my gosh, we're going to live forever. Thanks for sharing it." But if I announce that to your podcast listeners that we're going to live on average about 4,000 weeks, there'll be more of a collective gulp and a less punching of the air and a bit more sort of, "Oh my gosh, is that really true? That doesn't sound very many." And it's all right for you, Melissa. You're young, but I'm 57. I've used a few. And I think it's that I meet people in my daily work. I met a guy the other week. "I've worked here 29 years. I've not had a good day yet." Right. And that is what I'm talking about, being stuck in this average life in the job that you hate for 29 years. And the sad truth is that he isn't going to get another go at those 29 years. They're gone. So this is a sort of wake-up call, really, about, I think everybody wants to feel great, but the modern world is conspiring against us. It's making us forget how to feel great.
Yeah. And I am past the halfway mark in my 4,000. I'll be 40 next year.
Okay, well, the
It's
thing is,
so funny.
you can use that as a kind of, "Oh my gosh, this is a disaster," or you can use it to energize and reinvigorate and say, "Okay, so how am I going to change? How am I going to maximize the use of my time that I've got here?"
Here's what I like to remind people. So often, and I grew up where for some reason everybody that turned 40 had an over the hill party. Like, why was that like the cool thing to do? It's kind of uncouth now. People don't do it anymore. Thank God. Because if somebody was trying to hit me with an over the hill party, I think I might slap them. But I like to remind people, you've only really been calling the shots in your life since you were about 18. So just round it to 20 for ease. But now at 40, it's like, oh, I've only really been making my own choices and moving towards things for 20 years. And now I'm only about a third of the way there. I've got like 40 to go where I'm like, what am I going to accomplish by 50 and then 60? That's where it gets exciting. 1 through 18 is kind of a wash, in my opinion.
Well, you see, I think I'm preaching to the converted in your case, is that I think that you're clearly one of those 2%ers, because I think most people never really give the 4,000 weeks a second thought. And there's a phrase that I kind of alluded to it earlier. It's called destination addiction. So destination addiction is this accidentally putting your happiness in a different time zone. So it's that literally accidentally, you might have a holiday booked in 4 weeks and you go into work and somebody says, "How are you?" "Only 4 weeks to go." And in that little phrase there, what you've done is discount these 4 weeks. You're trying to get them out of the way to get to a point in the future where you're going to come alive. And really my thing about the 2%ers, about what I call the art of being brilliant, is learning to come alive now. And too many people, again, in my research, too many people waited for an illness or the death of a loved one or a big trigger in their life that makes them evaluate and rethink how they want to live their life. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to wait to get cancer. I don't want to wait to have a car accident. I don't want to wait to nearly die to come alive. I think that we can come alive now.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, and when I look at it in the only being an adult after the 20s, then now I'm kind of a teenage adult, like 39 is, I'm really like 19. Now's the time to get my shit together. But I feel like perspectives, I'm always talking about my Tinder of mindsets, just swiping through a different way to look at something until you feel that aliveness. And so if you're looking at something in a way where it just feels heavy, like, can you switch to any other way to look at it? Oh, that one doesn't feel that good. This one's a little better. Could it be better? And you just keep swiping until you find the one that enables you to do the thing that brings you closer to your vision. But that first involves actually creating that vision. And you have a concept that I really love that reminds me of the whole vision creation. So many people are saying YOLO, you only live once, which I have a hard time saying because I kind of believe in reincarnation. But you have a YODO. Tell us about that.
Well, Yodo, the truth is you only die once. I mean, you get to live every single day. That's the whole point. So YOLO is way off. I'm thinking of some T-shirts with Yodo. You only die once. And I think if you get to live every single day, it's that coming alive thing. And the bit you just alluded to earlier is this swiping right, looking for the thing that fits you. The biggest thing that came out of my research is the most obvious thing in the world. The biggest difference that will make you kind of alive or is the attitude you carry around with you. So this conscious and deliberate choice of attitude This is what you're swiping for. This is what we're looking for. And what I call it, in my PhD, I called it a portable benefit. So essentially, crafting an attitude, deliberately crafting an attitude that works in your favor. So I'm talking about making an effort to have an attitude that works for you. Seems such an intuitively obvious point, but in my research, it shows that most people are not consciously, deliberately choosing a great attitude. They're letting the world dictate how they feel. So I think you're swiping right, looking for this thing is the attitude. If you can find the attitude that works for you, that's I did a session I'll tell you while it's in my head. I did a session in a primary school a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago now. And so I was working with the 9-year-olds, fantastic group of kids, but on their classroom door was a poster. It had 7 words that literally changed my life, right? So it said, on the classroom door, it said, "Do it better than you have to." And I can remember thinking at the time, that's just so wonderful, because I think if those 7 words pretty much have changed my life, because I'm talking about if everybody listening to this does everything just a little bit better than you have to. So using your manners a bit better than you have to, being a bit kinder than you have to, being a little bit more compassionate and a bit more loving and a bit more grateful than you have to, working a little bit harder than you have to, then what happens is all those little bit better to adds up to superhero status, because most people are going through the motions doing what they have to, but no more. So it's lots of tiny little things, I think, that add up to you being an everyday superhero.
Why did you choose the title, The Art of Being Brilliant? I've hired a lot of people over the years, and I can tell you the biggest mistake that most business owners make. They think posting a job and waiting is a strategy, but it is not. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. With Sponsored Jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so that you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, Sponsored Jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. One of the things that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring so fast because the best candidates are already there, actively looking. Plus, with Indeed Sponsored Jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/mindlove. Just go to Indeed.com/mindlove right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/mindlove. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Why did you choose the title, The Art of Being Brilliant?
It's a good question, because I run courses called our flagship courses called that as well. It just worked in my head. That's what I wanted to be. It's not happiness necessarily. Happiness is slightly different. And I think the brilliant version of me is the one, I think, a collective group of people being brilliant. There's a phrase in positive psychology that I absolutely love. I think it makes it into the book: collective effervescence. And again, I just love that, because collective effervescence is a group of people being their best selves all at the same time. And the collective effervescence is at work, in the workplace. If your office has got that, there's a buzz, there's a vibrancy, there's an aliveness, there's a can-do mentality, there's a creativity. But if you can create that in the workplace, this collective effervescence, this buzz, and these are the days when work doesn't feel like work. This is where your people will go the extra mile, all those extra mile behaviors that we crave that make us world class. If you can create that culture of collective effervescence, is that extra mile is built in as standard. So I think that's the art of being brilliant as an organization, but it requires individuals. You can't command motivation. As a leader, I can't command you to go out there and be motivated. There's an element of you've got to switch it on yourself. So that for me is the art of being brilliant, is that internal switch, lighting the fire in your own belly first.
I love that word, and I feel like it's just used a little bit different in the Americas than it is in the way the British use it. It just has more of this radiant energy kind of flare, whereas we tend to just use it as being very smart. And so that's what I love about brilliance because it's almost like radiance, but it's got another, it's like you're living into your purpose with that radiance. That's how I think of the way you use brilliant. And it's just a word I feel like we need to adopt in a better way.
Well, radiance. I love radiance. I think I might steal that, and that might be the title of my new book. I think radiance is a beautiful word, but that's what it is. I wrote another book called Shine, which is the same thing. What are we waiting for? Why are we waiting for the weekend to be happy? Why are we waiting for the promotion? Why are we waiting for the perfect moment? In fact, if we are waiting for the perfect moment, we'll probably die waiting, because I don't know what it's like in America at the moment. I've seen your politics. It's not great. It's a bit weird over here as well. And I think the world is really, really good at luring us into being super busy doing the wrong things. Yeah, that it's almost like, in fact, there's a word zoochosis. I've thrown a lot of words out, but zoochosis, it intrigues me. It's a new word for me. Let me explain. You might know what it means, but it was new to me. So zoochosis is this effect whereby if you visit a zoo, the animals will be pacing up and down or scratching themselves, or they'll have a bald patch where they're scratching themselves. So what the zookeepers will do is they'll medicate these animals to try and make them better. Whereas essentially zoochosis is we're medicating them for a non-medical problem. The problem is that they're in captivity. If you let the bear out into the wild woods, it'd be fine. So, and I just can't help thinking that, have we kind of accidentally created an environment of zoochosis for humans? Have we accidentally created an environment that is actually not conducive to human flourishing? If teenagers in the UK, if they're spending 5.5 hours a day on social media, that is not healthy. Fast food, not healthy. We're sleep cheating, not healthy. So we get drawn into all these behaviors that are, it's almost a form of self-harming, I think. So, and we're taking medication after medication after medication, where the problem is not a medical one. The problem is that we've forgotten how to look after ourselves.
Yeah, and yeah, I gotta tiptoe in the political realm because if you get me talking too long, I'll be sharing how is it really an accident or is it designed this way? Because the wealthiest people in the world actually have a quote that say we want a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. So I'm gonna move into the tiptoeing out of that. You talk about clues in everyday life that indicate burnout, and I think this is so important because I feel like people just think pushing through is like this badge of honor, and they don't really see them as signs that something needs to be done or that anything is wrong because everyone around them is going through the same thing. What are some of those clues?
Well, it's the busyness epidemic, isn't it? That we're. In fact, I read a quote the other day. I think it was on X or Insta. It said busy, 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 dead. And I think that's a clue. I mean, I'm thinking pretty much there goes my life if I'm not careful. And I think the burnout nipping at your heels all the time is, and it's it's a really big deal over here. Burnout, exhaustion, stress. You call it what you like, but the problem with when we're feeling exhausted, that you said it beautifully, is we push on through. The solution, we think, is to work harder. We're feeling exhausted. I need more. I've got to be more productive. I need to work longer hours. So if you haven't got time to go to the gym, you eat in the office at your desk without having a break. You haven't got time to go visit your mum anymore. All these is just little clues that are, we're living life wrong here. So I think, self-care, self-love, it all sounds a bit woo-woo, but it's the least selfish thing you'll ever do is take really good care of yourself. Because you, as a mother of 2 young children, what your kids need is the best mum in the world. They need you fighting fit. They need you full of energy, full of optimism, hope, and compassion and gratitude. And therefore, that needs you need to really look after you first. By looking after yourself, you are accidentally kind of looking after your family too.
So I work with a lot of people, and so often I end up talking to mothers. A lot of people that work with me are 40 to 50, and they've had their kids, and they've kind of lost themselves in that. And it just reminds me where so often we have these misconceptions where, like, a lot of people go into motherhood and they're like, no, I'm going to do this. And maybe even they become a stay at home mom, and it feels so authentic. But I feel like no matter what, whether we're working for a company, whether we're being a mom, so often we end up losing ourselves, which is why so many middle-aged people are coming to me like, how do I refine that? And so it reminds me of something that you talk about in your book, this real or fake list. How do you use that to kind of explore the dichotomy between authenticity and artificiality?
Oh, crikey, there's a lot of big questions in there. Let me just go back to something that I think is quite funny. 'Cause again, what you just said, well, it wasn't funny, it was deep. But there's a recent headline in the news over here, right, on the BBC website. It's something like "Man joins search party looking for himself." That's the headline, right? Which I thought was absolute genius. So it's a guy in Turkey who'd gone away for a weekend. He lives in a village in Turkey. He'd gone away for a weekend. Nobody knew he'd gone away. When he came back, all the townsfolk were out in the woods looking for someone. He didn't know who, so he joined the search party looking for himself. And I think not only is that absolutely hilarious, but I think that I'm kind of thinking, isn't that almost metaphorically what we're all doing? Looking for our best self, sort of going round in circles looking for our best self. And I think in the book there's a thing called real or fake. What would you, I can't remember what it is now. I've not got the book in front of me. But do you want Ben and Jerry's ice cream or the cheap ice cream? Do you want freshly ground coffee or instant coffee? It asks you all those questions, and then the punchline, of course, is because do you want the best version of you or the bog standard version of you? Because they're both available. And the truth is that best version maybe take a little bit more effort. So back to the PhD, the reason that people don't carry a great attitude around with them is because it takes effort. It takes effort to actually deliberately craft a great attitude. It's a lot easier to just not choose. So all this best self, this 2% version of you, the truth is it's a lot easier to sink into mediocrity. It's a lot easier not to be your best self. So this real or fake, I'd rather be the real version of me. And I know that the real version of me is amazing, but it's easy to be the fake me. That's the problem. It's easy to be bog standard. It's so easy to be mediocre. But why would you? 4,000 weeks. Why would we? You know.
I see the problem being that people forget what their potential is. Like that potential isn't the real version of them anymore because they've been identifying with the one that's been falling in line and taking the easy route for so long. So when you're making those choices and the things that aren't tangible like coffee, how do you lean into the one that's the better version of you?
Well, let me ask you a question. I'll answer it in a roundabout way. If I ask you a question, what if you go back to age 9 and I asked you what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you have told me age 9?
A baby animal trainer and a writer, and then I could write about baby animals. That was my goal.
Beautiful. You see, it's a fantastic answer. Because it's a much cleverer answer actually than mine. So the reason I'm asking is it's not actually a very good question to ask a 9-year-old because basically you're just guessing, you don't really know. But it's the same question that my teacher asked me when I was 9. And so when I was 9, my teacher was he's a really nice guy. But one day, out of the blue, he stopped me and he said, "Andy, what do you want to be when you grow up?" I'm 9 years old. I've got no idea. So I said, "Well, I don't know, sir. An astronaut." And he said, "Well, no, you're from Derby in England." He says, there aren't any astronauts in Derby. You can't be that. Have another go. If that's what's your second best thing?" So I said, "I don't know. Well, a window cleaner." And he looked down at me and said, "Yes, Andy, definitely. You should definitely try and be a window cleaner." Because his point was, that's achievable. There's lots of window cleaners where I come from, so it's easy to do that. And so not only is it a bad question, but I think there's a much better question. Again, it's in the book. So instead of what do you want to be when you grow up? A much more powerful question is, what kind of person do you want to be when you grow up? Because if I've asked you that age 9, and if my teacher asked me that age 9, I wouldn't have had to make it up. I would have intuitively know. I want to be positive. I want to be optimistic. I want to be happy. I want to be kind and generous, and I want to be successful. And I knew that at 9, and I know it at 57. And if I get to 97, I'll still know the answer to what kind of person do I want to be. And I think my answer to that, and your answer to that, and everybody listening to this, is we all know the kind of person we want to be. But as you said, like somewhere along the way, that gets buried under other people's expectations of who we should be. You're a mom, you're a businesswoman. It's difficult to be that authentic version of you. But it's in there. That the truth is, it's in there. We've all got this inner, your everyday superhero is in there, but it gets covered over with the drudgery of everyday life.
I love that, and you actually solved something that I've been pondering for, like, 3 years, because I hate when people ask my kid what he wants to be when he grows up, and I don't want anyone to ask him that until like, ever, maybe even, because I think that so often first of all, like you said, why ask a 9-year-old? They only have, like, 6 occupations that they even know of. And then people ask them over and over again, and then they're affirming all day long, like for 10 years, that they're going to be a window cleaner or a garbage man because he likes the garbage truck. And then you kind of get confined in your thinking. And so I had been playing with like asking, well, what do you want to be right now? Or what do you want to lean into? What do you love right now? And I thought that might be
Perfect.
more eye opening, but I really love the what kind of person do you want to be? Because it's things that they can step into at this moment.
The thing is, that's not just a child question. Everybody listening to this, what kind of person do you want to be? That's really where your business is built and where my business is built. And again, if we just link it back to parenting just very quickly, with you with a little kid. I mean, my kids are growing up now, but there's only one rule of parenting really. And that's basically, and you'll have already realized with a little kid, is that your children will not do what you say. Okay. But they will do what you do. And that is so important, right? This is called social learning. So your little boy will look up at you and he will model his behaviors, his attitudes on you. So this is where it becomes super important that we're not paying lip service to being our best self. We're not just talking about it as a nice thing to do at the weekends. We have to step into it and live it and breathe it, be that authentic version of us, because it's the most important thing you'll ever do for your kids.
Yeah. It's also been the biggest catalysts to change in my life. I didn't think I wanted kids for a long time, and it was just like I loved the diving into self-development, and it just felt, my own personal transformation is good enough, and I'm sure it is. But then at one point, I was just like, what else? It almost got boring. And then I had kids, and I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But then I just started noticing they're watching me the whole time. So this one thing that I've been making excuses for, it it suddenly has this, like, blaring light on it, and I don't think I would have allowed myself to see certain things when it was just me, because it was also the things I love to do and the things that were my lifestyle or whatever, and now I have these kids just being the mirror, like, "Nope, but you're still not willing to look at this, this, and this," and so I feel like for me, personal transformation could only go so much without that reproduction aspect.
Well, agreed. If we just take that a little bit further and look at the human emotions are contagious. So I'm not picking on my research here. This is Americans, Christakis and Fowler, I think I got it off. So when you're being your best self, when you're genuinely in love with life and you've got this energy and this passion for life, then for sure that's good for you. It's good for your creativity, good for your energy, good for your happiness, good for your longevity as well. But it reaches 3 degrees of people removed from you. So Melissa, on a good day, let's say you are having a good day. Therefore, your son will be 16% happier because he's caught your happiness. But then your son will go to nursery, and the staff at the nursery will be then 10% happier. So it goes 16, 10, and 6. So 16% happier. Everybody you directly come into contact with will feel your happiness by 16%. Then they will pass it on by 10%. So all the staff at nursery are now 10% happier. And then those nursery staff go home to their families are now 6% happier. So it leaks out of you at 16 into other people at 10 and into their contacts at 6. So essentially, you having a good day, you are reaching your friends, friends, and your friends. You are impacting on people who you've not even met. And I think this becomes such a huge deal, because we essentially are creating a ripple effect, an emotional ripple effect. We are wired to catch how other people feel. So you at your best, it's bigger than you. If you can't be bothered to do it for yourself, then do it for your family.
Tell us about that 16-10-6 approach, because I know you had a story in your book where there are all these complicated formulas for happiness and you simplified it.
Yeah, well, I think in the book I sort of making fun really of academia, because it's so overly complicated. I put in the book one of the London Business School formula for happiness. It takes a whole page. It is the most impenetrable academic hieroglyphics that you're ever likely to see. And I think that's really where I'm taking a stand against. I describe myself as a recovering academic. So essentially, I have got a PhD, but I got it through blood, sweat, and tears rather than natural cleverness. So I'm not a natural academic. I just ground it out. But I think that simplifying it all down to, the biggest factor in your own happiness is not some complicated formula. It's strong personal relationships. That's the number one factor in meta-analysis, which is analysis of all the other analysis out there. And actually, the ability to create strong personal relationships with people is the number one factor that will affect your well-being and your mental health, and their well-being and mental health as well. In fact, just a little bit further, there's a thing called Dunbar's number, which I think is super important. So Dunbar's number, if we boil it down, it says, it might not be exactly this, but it's very close. You'll have between 12 and 15 people in your life who are socially close enough to you that will form the core of your life. So it's great, you're running a business, you're going to need social media, you're going to chase followers. I get that. I do that as well. You have to do that as a business. But actually, your happiness isn't related to having 10,000 followers on X or Instagram. Your happiness and your well-being is much more closely related to strong personal relationships with between 12 and 15 people. So nurturing those, putting time into that, that's your kith, your kin, your closest family and friends. That's where you should be spending your time.
I wish somebody would have told me that when I was 20 and I was trying to have 1,000 friends on my friends list, and then none of them.
Well, again, I think intuitively as a human being, we know that human connections are important, but we're back to the modern world conspiring against us and scrolling 5.5 hours in search of followers is depleting, and it's robbing us of our happiness. Whereas if you're spending 5.5 hours investing in actual close personal relationships with your family and friends, your happiness and well-being will flourish.
Plus, how often are we even giving ourselves time to think? Because we have a thought or somebody shares something with us, then it goes in our algorithm, and then we're just scrolling all day long, and everything is confirming our biases. And then we see a trigger, so we're automatically reactive, and we don't allow ourselves time to even come to our own conclusions because we're so busy finding our tribes that tell us how to think.
Well, again, we're busy doing the wrong things, exactly the wrong things, and you tiptoed around it, saying, "Oh, have we accidentally created this world, or have we deliberately?" I think I'm not blaming everything on social media, but I think it's a huge deal. I really do, and I think I'm with you in terms of originally, because I'm old enough to remember when social media first started, and it was social. It was a thing in the UK called Friends Reunited. It was a very rudimentary thing that you would connect with old school friends. That was basically it. It was done for the right reasons. And then gradually the tech geeks and the psychologists realized that keeping your attention was the thing. So distracting you and making sure that you keep scrolling for 5.5 hours, there's value in your attention. And that's when it got sinister. That's when we started to deliberately move it towards something that we've created zoochosis deliberately. I will give you some phone stats that I looked up the other day. Out of The Economist, which is a reasonably believable magazine. So the average phone user now, we're looking at our phones on average 150 times a day. Super users who are between 14 and 17, their kids now are looking at their phones 363 times a day, which smacks of addiction to me. 84% of people have texted someone in the same room as them, which is hilarious, really. 72% of people look at their phone very first thing, like it's your alarm. So straight away, you're letting social media into your head 1 minute after you've woken up. 64% of people have used their phone on the toilet, and a third of them have dropped their phone down the toilet. I mean, it gets ridiculous. 36% of people would rather give up their pet than their phone. Melissa, what's happening? What's happening to us? 10% of people look at their phone during sex. What? I mean, come on,
What?
people.
Position ideas, or what are they
Well,
doing?
it doesn't tell me why.
Tell me
But
it's
I
at
think,
least like the Kama Sutra app and not like texting a friend.
yeah, look. So, but I think we're back. Yeah, we're back to the point of we're busy doing the wrong things. We're accidentally hooked into making ourselves unhappy. Zoochosis. Yeah. So, I mean, the solution is to not do those things. So I've been trying to get off my phone. I don't know what you're like on a phone, but since I've read the stats, since I've understood Dunbar's number that I need to connect with between 12 and 15 people, then I've really tried hard to cut down the doom scrolling and the social media. And it's hard. It's really hard to not have I can't give up my phone. I need it. Everything's on it. But I don't know what it's like in the US, but I can go out into a British pub and there's families of 4 having a meal, all on their devices. Nobody's talking. Nobody's making eye contact. Even when the food arrives, nobody looks or speaks. They're just scrolling and eating. And I think that pains me because we're missing opportunities there to connect with those special people in our lives. So, yeah, I mean, I sound like doom and gloom. It's not really doom and gloom because you can look at that and you don't have to do that. I think I built a business for the last 20 years on looking around at what everybody else is doing and not doing that, being brave enough to not fall into those traps.
Right. And I think there's power in just one extra level of awareness. And if we let ourselves, it's so easy to have it be dark. It's like, oh my gosh, everything's going to shit. And then that's the mindset that you're landing on. Remember the Tinder of mindsets? Does that one feel good? Is it moving you forward? Probably not. Swipe one more time and realize that if you know what you're up against, then you have a clearer path on what you're supposed to do. And it reminds me of I was bulimic for a very long time, and it was so hard for me to. I was really trying to heal for years and years. And one of the most, well, two things were the most helpful. One was finding love because it was almost like this reflection of love that I couldn't give to myself. But the other one was really understanding our food and how food is meant to be addictive. And so I really believe for myself, it would have been impossible for me to heal my bulimia if I was still eating all of the processed foods with all the ingredients that were meant to keep me coming back to that. And so when I started to really eat well and focus on wellness and whole foods and foods that came from trees and animals and all that, I started to rapidly be able to detach from those things because I wasn't like showing up to shoot up heroin and then being like, I only need this once, like that's kind of what some of it's like. And so the same thing with the phone, realize that the way, I mean, capitalism is beautiful, but also has a lot of downsides. And these companies, they need your attention so that their apps can rank in the app store. And so they don't have your well being in mind. They have your attention in mind. They have their own profit in mind. Same with the pharmaceutical industry, same with everything else. And so, again, you can look at this and be super dark, everything's out to kill us. Or, okay, maybe I should stop just zoning out and doing what everyone else is doing and choose what I want to be, who I want to be, and how I'm going to get there. And then just make intentional choices every day. Rant over.
No, I was about to say that's the most beautiful rant I've heard in a long time. Well done, you. Yeah, absolutely. Everything you said there, and again, I know that you understand this because you've had so many guests on who are saying the same as me, and you're an open door for all this. I know that you are, but it does require to point the finger back at yourself and take some personal responsibility. That's the issue there. My eating, moving, and sleeping. So my sort of, I call them keystone habits, the physical habits really of, I think it helped me to change my identity. I don't mean like literally going to the passport office and demanding to be a different person. I would always have the best intention. So I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to get to bed on time, but I would fail time after time. I would eat the wrong things and be deprived of sleep and not go for the run until a few years ago I changed my identity. What I became the kind of person who makes good choices around food. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a huge sentence, but for me, it was massive because all of a sudden, all the effort that I'd made into trying to eat whole food and trying to eat healthy food, the effort was gone because all of a sudden, oh, I'm the kind of person who makes good choices. So instead of eating a whole packet of biscuits, I would just eat maybe one biscuit or no biscuits because that's what a person who makes good. I'm that kind of person. And I'm the kind of person who looks after their physical health. As soon as I shifted and became the kind of person who looks after their physical health, then going for a run is the most obvious thing in the world. I don't care if it's raining. It makes no difference because I'm the kind of person who looks after their physical health. So actually, it was a shift of my identity, which sounds a bit weird. So almost nothing changed, but everything was easier. So that really worked for me to eat, move, and sleep in healthy proportions.
Well, because then you're not making a choice every single time you go to the pantry. You've already made the choice, and then everything
Perfect.
else follows. So, yeah, those identity shifts are the only way for lasting change to really occur, whether you realize that's what you're doing or not. The people who don't realize it, they've now shown up to their habit and maybe pushed through willpower long enough, which most people can't even do because willpower is not infinite, that they accidentally changed their identity along the way. But you can reverse engineer that and deliberately do that and get those results much faster.
Yeah, and again, it's something that I think is often missed on podcasts and often missed in books. Is so to be that. If we go back to the two percenters, so imagine a graph of well-being where far too many people are in the bottom third of the graph, exhausted, a bit average. They come alive on a Saturday, but they're not alive on a Monday. My two percenters at the top, I've already said, statistically significantly happier, more energy, so many things going for them, create stronger relationships. All those extra mile behaviors come naturally in the 2% mode. But to get there, of course, you've got to carry a great attitude, and there's things that we could share that would help you to start to do to be the best version of you. But equally, what you're alluding to is to be the best version of you, you also have to stop doing things. So we've all got these bad habits of thinking that manifest in unhelpful behaviors. And actually, human beings, it's easy for your listeners to take on 10 new things to start today. Human beings are brilliant at learning, but we're really bad at unlearning. So actually, what have I got to stop doing to make my life epic is really, really important, but much harder to do. Because once the habits are ingrained in your thinking and your behaviors, it's really hard to unlearn. So we're really good at learning, but bad at unlearning. But it's really important to unlearn and understand those negative habits. Like your first starting point is understanding what they are before I can stop doing them.
Yeah, I feel like most of my growth has been from unlearning what I had learned in grade school. But I had to look at it in a different way where because I don't think we can unlearn anything. Like once I see something, it's there, but I can change my relationship to that thing. And so, for example, you learn, to just kind of sit down, obey, whatever. Then I unlearned by actually learning how to set my own goals and create my own path and stop just falling in line and dream in a different way. But the other thing still exists, and so because I know that though, I know what to watch out for. I know, oh, when I'm gonna slip in. It's like the food thing. Like, yeah, I learned how to binge eat, and that's still inside of me. I also learned all of this information about food, and that is not like that was a miserable existence. So that is there. What do I have to do to kind of put my guards up to still be the person I want to be, despite all of those neural pathways that I created for 9 years?
Yeah. Well, it's grooved in, like you say, probably not going to ever disappear, but it's about creating the new pathways. Your brain is always. We used to think that when you get to my age, I'm 57, that your brain was fixed, but of course, neuroplasticity means that we've all got the capacity to learn and unlearn and relearn. Um, but I think it's habits. It's building in good habits. But I think we're back to there's a if I give you an analogy, again, I can't remember if it's in the book or not, but I think it's a really smart analogy. Is that I think that do you know what poo stick? Have you ever played poo sticks? You play poo sticks in America. There's a Winnie the Pooh thing. Let me explain because it's not as bad as it sounds, right? So, so poo sticks is where you
Potty games? I don't know.
no, get that out of your head. No, it's not that. Winnie the Pooh, right? Is where you stand on a bridge and you throw a stick in the river, and then it's a race down the river with your
Oh, I've
sticks,
heard of
right?
that.
So Winnie the Pooh. So let's go back to 1976. So what am I, 9 years old? It's the longest, hottest summer in the UK. We don't normally have a good summer, but that was a cracking summer. I'm 9 years old, and me and my mates, we live near a river. This is many years ago, obviously 76, before you were around. But back in the day, there was no computers, no phones, so we just played by the river for 6 weeks summer holidays, and we played poo sticks. So just bear with me, just indulge me for a second. So there's a huge disused railway bridge across the river, and what we would do, age 9, me and 6 of my friends, school friends, we'd stand there on the bridge. You'd all choose a stick. You lean over the big bridge and looking down at the river. After 3, 1, 2, 3, you let go of your sticks, and they all go all at the same time, splash into the river. Then there was another bridge 50 meters downstream. We would run as fast as we could. We'd get to bridge number 2, and essentially poo sticks is a race. So whose stick's going to get there first? 1976, Melissa, is more exciting than it sounds. So you were standing on the second bridge, cheering your stick on. Come on, my stick. Somebody would win. Yeah, I'm first, I'm second, I'm third. There was one time that I can remember playing poo sticks where my stick never arrived. Right. So all my mates have gone back to bridge number 1 to play another round. And I'm like, well, where's my stick? So I'm 9 years old. So I go back to bridge number 1. But instead of going up to the top to have another go, I slid on my backside down the riverbank underneath the big railway bridge. And I'm underneath the bridge now, and it's dark and it's a bit cold, a bit eerie down here. I'm at river level, and I'm looking out over this river, and I'm looking for my stick, and I can see my stick right in the middle of the river. But when it hit the water, my stick got stuck right behind the stanchion of the bridge. So my stick basically went nowhere. Now, it's a bit of a long-winded, I can't remember what the question was, but a long-winded story. But essentially, my take on that stick is that stick probably doesn't need therapy or counseling. It probably doesn't need to tell me how it feels. It certainly doesn't need medication. What that stick needs is just the smallest little nudge back into the current of the river. And if we can give that stick just the tiniest little nudge, it will find the flow and it will do 50 miles down the river, no problem at all. And I just think that when I'm listening to the back catalogue of your podcast and your brilliant body of work that you've got, is what you're doing and what I'm doing is just a little nudge, just giving people a little nudge back into the flow. And flow is actually, it fits perfectly, because flow, as you will know, is a psychological term. When you're in a state of flow where you're in 2% mode, that is you at your best. That's you when life feels a bit easier. It's when time flies by and you're totally absorbed in your life. It's when life feels effortless. So I think hats off to you, because what you're doing, and hopefully what I'm doing as well, is nudging people back into the flow.
I love that story. It's such a beautiful illustration of it. And I love watching how surprised people are when they get that nudge, because everyone thinks they need this whole life overhaul, if they even get there, if they're not just medicating out of their own inspiration. And so it's like these small little shifts that are too easy not to do. You've identified them, you've gotten so clear on who you want to be, and then you just make these little shifts in your behaviors and the way that you make your choices. And then within even just a few weeks, people are like, oh my gosh, I did not know I could feel this way in my life. And so, yeah, I think people scare themselves out of change because they think it's going to have to be this big change and they're going to have to give up everything. And then they don't even think it sounds good anymore, because it's like, oh, but I love binge drinking on weekends or whatever. Like, what kind of person am I going to have to be? And it's like, well, if you still want to binge drink one Friday a month, like, go for it. But it's going to feel differently for me. The more changes that I made, it was like the other things that I was clinging to. I was looking at it. I'm like, do I really like this? Oh, so much of my life is best self behavior. And now this just isn't feeling as fun anymore. Like, rosé all day just doesn't really have the same kick to it as it did when I was all in the bad behaviors and it was the only thing to escape. So it's just, life starts to unfold when you find that identity. And it reminds me of something that you talk about, um, swimming or going upstream in the context of mental health, because again, we get so stuck in this like symptom prevention and or numbing from it, that so often people don't even see what that root cause is, and that's the small nudge that they need to find that alignment. So tell us about it.
Well, again, we're back to the start. Traditional psychology, illness, mental disorders. I get that. I understand that. But if you think about all the psychologists that have ever existed, so psychology is about 150 years old as a subject. And in that 150 years, it's almost invariably predicated on illness. So the fundamental assumption of psychology is still, let's find out what's wrong with you and then give you that diagnosis, because that's really useful. When you've got that diagnosis, here's some therapy, here's some counseling, or here's some medication. So we've got 150 years of trying to fix people who need fixing. Now, I'm not dissing that in any way. I think that's super valuable. However, if you look around over the last 150 years, despite the best efforts of psychology, despite the best efforts of counseling and medication, the mental ill health is getting worse, not better. So my whole thing is that it isn't working. And the upstream thing comes from a beautiful thing Desmond Tutu used to, the great Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela's sidekick, man who changed the world pretty much. He used to tell this fantastic story. I'm not Desmond Tutu, but so I can't tell it as charismatically as he. But he used to tell this sermon of a guy who's standing by a river, quite a fast-flowing river, and he hears some screaming. And he looks upstream, and there's a guy like waving his hands in the river, going, "Help me, help me, I'm drowning, help me, help me." So the guy's like, "Oh my gosh," wades into the river, rescues the drowning person, and there he is, coughing and spluttering on the riverbank. No sooner as he rescued this person, then there's another. This time it's a woman. "Help me, I'm drowning as well." So the guy's back in the river a second time. He rescues the woman. She's now next to the man, coughing and spluttering on the bank. Third person, this time it's a teenager. "Help me, I'm drowning." He's in the river for the third time, yanking this person out. Then Desmond Tutu comes with a punchline that only really Desmond Tutu can say it, but there comes a point where we've got to stop wading into the river and rescuing people, and we need to go upstream to find out why they're falling in the first place. And this is the huge difference, Melissa, between traditional psychology that is continuing to yank people out of the river, people who need pulling out. I know that they're going to be there, but there's too many people in the river now. The river of life is so fast. There's so many people struggling that psychologists are overwhelmed. There is not the resources or the time to rescue everybody now. So positive psychology is about going upstream to look at the causes. If we could equip people with the means to be able to take care of their mental health and well-being, then they might not fall in the river in the first place. Yeah, or if they did fall into the white water, they could get themselves out. They wouldn't need rescuing. And I love this preventative, the positive psychology. Instead of waiting till people are broken and then trying to fix them, we're going upstream to try and prevent them being ill in the first place.
I am a firm believer that sometimes when you try to save people, you do them a disservice. I have this metaphor that, like, if you try to cushion someone's rock bottom, you end up going down with them and you're the one with the bruises. At least that's what happened to me. But I needed my rock bottoms in order to develop the skills to get myself out of them. It's like the analogy of the butterfly, where if you like cut open the chrysalis, the butterfly would just die. Like the
Yeah.
strength that they gain from busting themselves out is what they need to be a flying butterfly. And so that kind of brings me back to one of your concepts around recognizing when you're contributing to your own problems. And if you don't give people the space to do that, to see that it might be them. Yes, all these things look like outside things, but it's actually the fact that they're in reaction mode the whole time and never finding their power through it, that the world just keeps punching them in the face. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I think we can be all our own worst enemy, essentially. And a lot of people go their entire life without realizing that they can take personal responsibility. We're back to behaviors that are grooved in and habits that are grooved in. Um, Unless they've got a good coach like yourself, then most people don't have access to that. So they're making it up. We're all making it up as we go along. There's a beautiful word, sonder, and sonder, something like it means every random passerby in your life has the exact screaming insecurities in their head that you've got in yours. So it's like quite, because I used to think it was just me, like with the negative self-talk, or you're going on a podcast and who's going to want to listen to you, and if you write a book, who would read a book written by you? So it's quite comforting to know that everybody's got that self-doubt, that monkey brain, that nagging inner critic. That's just part of being human. That even the people in your life who you think they've got their shit totally together, no, they haven't. No, they haven't. They've got Sonder as well. They've got the same screaming insecurities. So we can't ever rid ourselves of that. All we can learn to be is to quieten the voice and to learn to be your own best friend in your head. That's where it needs to start.
Well, we've covered so much ground today, and I love leaving listeners with one thing to focus on, whether it's an action item, a little piece of growth work, just a thought experiment. What would you give them today?
I would go with, if you want to wrap everything we've spoken of in a nice little bow, then the science of hugging. I just love the science. I'm not a big hugger, so I'm not a very huggy person. But in the last 7 years since I learned this, so here's your homework, everybody. Here's your takeaway. So are you a huggy person, Melissa? Are you a hugger? You
Yeah.
are, yeah. Okay. So you'll love this. But the average hug, if you watch huggy people, the average hug lasts 2.1 seconds. So if you watch huggers, it will be like 1, 2, finished. So that's lovely. But here's the science bit. For the love to transfer between two people, a hug actually needs to last 7 seconds or longer. Now, for non-huggers like me, that's whoa. That sounds like an eternity. And it is it's not for strangers in the park, you know what I mean? It's for your Dunbars, 12 to 15 people. It's just for the people that you love and people who love you back. But I just love it as 7 seconds. Don't count out loud as well. I did learn that. That's just going to spoil the effect. But it's 7-second hug. The beauty of it is, it's an I love you hug. I think it's a beautiful piece of homework for everybody listening to this, is to hopefully there'll be somebody in your house right now who you love dearly. You don't have to tell them you love them. 7 seconds is just long enough for them to know that you love them.
I love that. I'm always getting my child to, because one of my kids is like a peel away from a hug immediately. The other one will stay attached forever. But I'm like, no, it's got to be 20 seconds. Mommy needs oxytocin.
20 or 20 is big. Yeah.
Well, that's the oxytocin release from what I've heard. And I'm like,
Yeah, for sure.
feel good feelings. Plus, if you want to take it one step further, go heart to heart, and then you get that electromagnetic heart to heart connection. Well,
see, I knew I would learn something on this podcast. I knew you would take it further. So thank you for that. Yeah, beautiful. I think the Brit's a bit more reserved. 7 seconds is plenty for a Brit, 20 seconds for the Americans.
One thing that everybody in my life knows about me in every area is I will always take it a little further than you want it to go.
Good.
Well, for listeners that are really resonating with this and want to read your book and learn more about what you do, where's the best place for them to connect?
Okay, it's artofbrilliance.co.uk is the website, but the books are all over Amazon. If you just Google Dr. Andy Cope, I'm sure my books will come up wherever. So The Art of Being Brilliant is the flagship book, but there's loads on emotional intelligence and leadership. But it's all about the same thing. It's all trying to inspire people to upgrade to that best self.
All the links from this episode will be at mindlove.com/364. So your challenge for this week is to go hug a bitch. I don't know why I worded it that way, but hug somebody, hug a friend, hug a family member, and see if you can elongate that a little bit instead of focusing on exactly when to peel away, which I think so many of us do. See if you can really connect in that moment. There's actually an episode coming up that has not yet aired yet that talks about this shift we can make during presence, in a moment of presence, just going a little deeper just by intending to. What I like to do is actually visualize my energy opening, being receptive, becoming the moment. So I wonder, what would happen if just for a moment you became that hug? You trusted that you were getting some sort of nourishment beyond just the physical touch. Maybe your auric fields are melting together in some sort of way, and you're going to come away a slightly different person. Whether or not any of that resonates is one thing, but it's another to have a focus while you're doing something uncomfortable. So if you can think about something, have some sort of motivation for going a little deeper than you normally would in something, it can be really helpful. And that way you're thinking about the opening of your energy instead of just, okay, how many seconds has it been? But if you can make it to 20 seconds, that is when the oxytocin starts to release. So it's a whole other slew of benefits. Let me know how it goes, or reach out for a hug on Instagram at MindLoveMelissa. As of the recording of this episode, we still have one more spot in the Mind Love retreat. This is going to be so epic. I have been polishing the itinerary, ordering all of the epic gifts for the swag bags. And if you know anything about me, I do not give basic bitch swag bags. Mine are awesome. In the last cohort of Soul Strength, I gave out personalized Yetis. This retreat, I have them packed with things that are going to just allow you to get fully into wellness mode during this week together. I have put everything into this, and it is going to be so amazing, so luxurious, organic food, all of the wellness activities. I have things that I have not even mentioned that I'm squeezing into this itinerary. So do not miss it. If you're feeling the call, reach out. Let's see if we can get you there. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.